Hi there, and welcome to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. It's good to have you here. Today's episode is a bit of a gentle nudge, the kind you sometimes need when you're feeling stuck. We're talking about starting over, no matter how old you are, and why reinvention truly has no deadline.
I think there's this quiet pressure in society to have everything figured out by a certain age, as if your life's meant to follow this neat, tidy timeline. But honestly, life's rarely that clean. It bends, shifts, falls apart, and sometimes you need to begin again.
And beginning again doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you're behind. It just means you're brave enough to look at your life honestly and say, this isn't working for me anymore. I want something different.
And it takes courage to admit that. To let go of the version of your life that you once thought would be permanent. Whether it's changing careers at 40, going back to school at 50, or learning who you are after decades of being who you thought you had to be, there's no shame in starting again.
If anything, there's power in it. Starting over means you're still open. Still curious. Still believing that something better, or something truer, might be waiting on the other side of the risk. It's never too late to meet yourself again.
And what's really freeing is realizing that you don't need permission to begin again. You don't need anyone to validate your timeline. You're allowed to grow in your 50s, change direction in your 60s, or start dreaming again in your 70s. Life isn't on a stopwatch.
Yeah, and when you let go of that pressure, to have done it all by some imaginary deadline, you open up space for real possibility. For rediscovery. For building something that feels more like you now, not who you were 5 or 10 years ago.
Because you're not the same person you were back then. And that's okay. Actually, it's healthy. It means you've lived, experienced, evolved. So why should we expect our path to stay the same when we are constantly shifting?
Exactly. And sometimes it's not about throwing everything away, it's about tweaking it. Asking yourself, what still fits? What do I want to take with me? And just as importantly, what have I outgrown?
I think we forget that reinvention doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. It can be quiet. Subtle. It can start with a decision to do one small thing differently. To take one step towards something that excites you, even if no one else understands it yet.
And the best part? You don't need to have all the answers before you start. You just need to be willing to be a beginner again. To be curious. To follow a new thread, even if it feels a little uncertain.
And you know what? Being a beginner again can be beautiful. It humbles you, yes, but it also wakes something up inside you. That part of you that still believes in possibility. That still wants to learn, explore, and grow, even if the world says you're supposed to have it all figured out by now.
There's this strange myth that starting over is somehow a sign of failure. But actually, staying stuck in something that no longer fits just because you're afraid to start again, that's what really steals your joy. Reinvention, on the other hand, gives it back.
And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is admit that the life you built no longer reflects who you've become. That you've changed. That your values have shifted. And that's not a crisis, it's a transition.
It doesn't mean the life you had was wrong. It just means it brought you as far as it could. And now, you're ready for what's next. That's not failure. That's wisdom. That's growth. That's a deep kind of honesty with yourself.
And it's never too late for that kind of honesty. Whether you're 25 or 65, there's still time to chase what feels meaningful. Still time to surprise yourself. Still time to become someone you haven't even imagined yet.
And maybe what you're craving isn't a complete reset, it's just permission to evolve. To shift gears. To try something new without having to justify it to anyone. You're allowed to want something different now. That doesn't make you flaky, it makes you human.
And sometimes, people around you won't get it. They'll ask why you'd give up something stable, or why you're making a big change at your age. But the truth is, you're the one who has to live with your life. You're the one who wakes up to it every morning.
And that's reason enough to build a life that actually feels like yours. A life that reflects who you are today, not just who you used to be, or who others expect you to remain.
And the thing is, reinvention doesn't always look glamorous. It might mean quiet mornings with new routines, learning something slowly, or starting over in ways that feel invisible to others. But those quiet shifts can be the most powerful.
Yeah, because they are rooted in you. Not in the timeline you thought you were supposed to follow. Not in comparison to anyone else. Just you, making choices that align with the person you're becoming. Bit by bit. Day by day.
And it's never too late to choose differently. To rewrite the story. To become the author of your next chapter. Reinvention doesn't ask, "Are you ready?" It asks, "Are you willing?" And if the answer is yes, that's enough to begin.
And there's something so empowering in realizing you don't need a dramatic reason to start again. You don't have to hit rock bottom. You don't need some life-shattering moment. You can simply decide that you want more alignment, more peace, more joy, and that's enough.
You're allowed to grow out of your old life gently. Quietly. With grace. Reinvention isn't always some grand reinvention arc. It's often found in the daily courage it takes to say, "I want something better for myself," and to act on that desire.
And even if you don't have a clear roadmap, that's okay. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Most of us are figuring it out as we go. There's no shame in starting small, no shame in being unsure.
Because in the beginning, it's less about certainty and more about movement. More about momentum. More about listening to the part of you that's been whispering, "There's more to life than this," and finally deciding to respond.
And when you do, even the smallest shifts can feel like a revolution. A change in routine. A new boundary. A different kind of conversation with yourself. These tiny moments of reinvention, they build. They shape. They guide you home.
Home to a version of yourself that feels real. One that isn't stuck in who you used to be, or afraid of who you might become. Just fully alive, fully open, and finally giving yourself the space to begin again.
And the truth is, beginning again doesn't erase anything. It honors everything that came before it. All those versions of you, they mattered. They brought you here. But now, you get to decide where here leads next.
And maybe for the first time, you're making decisions not out of fear or expectation, but out of desire. Out of trust. Out of the quiet belief that your life can still expand. That there are still pieces of you left to meet.
Sometimes, the most life-giving thing you can do is say, "I'm not done." Not done growing. Not done dreaming. Not done becoming. And that's a radical act in a world that tells you to settle once you reach a certain point.
Because settling isn't the same as peace. And starting over isn't chaos, it's clarity. It's choosing to step back into the unknown, because something inside you knows you're meant for more than just making it through the day.
And that choice, to start over, no matter how quietly or slowly, is a reminder that your story is still being written. That you're not stuck. That you're not too old, too late, or too far gone.
You're just beginning again, with more wisdom, more softness, and maybe for the first time, more honesty about what you actually want.
So if you've been wondering whether it's too late to try again, to pivot, to begin something new, the answer is no. It's not too late. You haven't missed your moment. You're allowed to turn the page now. Not because you have to, but because you want to.
You're allowed to be a beginner at any age. To let go of what no longer fits. To create space for what's next, even if you can't quite name it yet. Reinvention doesn't wait for permission. It begins when you do.
Thanks for joining us today. Wherever you are in your story, we hope this episode reminded you that your next chapter is still possible, and that it can start today, in your own time, and in your own way.
This has been the British Accent Podcast. Take care of yourself. We'll see you again next time.